COVID-19 is changing how B2B buyers and marketers interact. Savvy marketing leaders are learning how to adapt to, well, the next normal. Even as they manage that reality, marketing leaders also need to adjust how their organizations market in the face of new customer habits and trying economic times. In many ways, the changes in customer behavior are an acceleration of digital trends that were in motion before the pandemic hit. And it's evident that we are at a digital inflection point where B2B marketing operations going forward will look fundamentally different from what they were before the pandemic. To better understand how B2B marketers are leading their team through the COVID crisis, we've launched SalesBoxTV Marketing Leaders Webisode series. Now, this week, we've invited VC John, Global Industry Marketing Director of Accenture. John, hello. VC, hello. Welcome to SalesBoxTV Marketing Leaders Webisode. How are you?
My pleasure to be here with you, Jason. And there's never been a better time than this for us CMOs to get our heads together to see the view of the world from our perspective.
Ain't that the truth? And I can see that you are staying safe at home, working, which is
that
great.
That is right. Like most of the 7 billion people on the planet right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Stay safe, stay home. Hashtag. VC, let's jump straight into it. How has your marketing and communication strategy evolved during the last few months?
Wow. I think the D word is what's been driving our strategy, and that's our response to disruption, really. Because the best laid plans of men, and even gods, I think at this point, have been disrupted thanks to the way things have panned out over the last few months. And I think our response really has moved from being one of a reaction to a concerted, intentional positioning of how we want to manage the disruption going forward from here. So we really have intentionally moved from being left in the lurch to getting more in control. So the last few months have really been taking back control from all of the goings on that we've seen around us.
Yeah, it must have been quite difficult in the beginning because you've got that initial reaction. And how do you overcome that? So what steps have you taken as a marketing leader to mitigate any disruptions in your marketing plan?
So there are three areas of disruption that we felt, really. The first one was the annual budget and the way it was aligned to actions that we were going to be deploying across the world. All of that needed to be reassessed and redeployed. The second part was how we would then get our client experiences and our engagements in a more seamless fashion now that everything is digital and virtual. The third bit clearly was how we were going to get even more closely aligned to the strained pipeline that the business was trying to churn. So for us, those are the three areas that we were focusing on as we got our heads around disruption. And the way it's changed really is it's given us even more impetus to stay true to that pipeline progression. So we're going even more bottom of the funnel. We're not doing as much of the awareness, as much of the, what I'd like to call as a B2B marketer, the fluff that we have around brand. We let the corporate guys handle that. As a B2B marketer, I'm holding myself even more accountable to that progression, movement of the needle in the sales pipeline continuum that we're responsible for.
On that note of sales and marketing, how do you see COVID-19 changing the nature of B2B sales and marketing going forward?
I think, like I mentioned in the beginning of the call, there's never been a better time than this for CMOs to step up, really. Because I think, given the strain that the businesses are under, if you look at the decades of recession that's happened in the past, there's always been an opportunity for people to step up. And by that, I mean for people to redefine themselves. And as a function, B2B marketers have an opportunity to redefine themselves and get a permanent seat at the strategy table. So I think the way it's changed for us is that we are even more hardwired into the strategy conversation now at the strategy table. So as a CMO, we are held accountable for the dollars that are now being spent on marketing. We are held accountable for the rate at which the pipeline progresses. We're also being held accountable now to being the headlights to the business, which we could have gotten away in the past by saying, oh, that's the business's point of view, or that's business, the headache for the guys in the business. But I think that's changing ever more radically now than ever before, because CMOs are being seen as the headlights to the business.
Strategy is changing all over the world. So where is the opportunity in a crisis like this?
The opportunity very clearly is in how we harness the power of data and how we deploy analytics tools to churn that data, to mine the data, to give us insights that matter. So my favorite quote is, you torture data long enough, it'll tell you what you want to hear. And I think B2B marketers are being held even more accountable today to say, it's not your view of the world that we want to know. It's what the customer wants to see of us. It's what we want to see in terms of the real opportunities out there. So I think the analytics aspect of your marketing, your martech, as it were, that you've set up for yourself, that's going to be even more stress tested right now. So if you think about it, there's been a tendency to go for the shiny bauble as far as marketers were concerned, in terms of CRM tools. Oh, the next big thing, whether it's Hootsuite or Eloqua or what have you, and even a whole host of other small startups that have come up with some really fun martech tools. But I think the recession that we are facing right now is going to push us to a place where we get really intentional and serious about how we are going to apply the tools for results that business matters.
Wow. Looking forward to it, though, to a certain degree. There's got to be a silver lining.
But for marketers, like I said, there's never been a better opportunity to prove your worth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, traditionally, from a marketing perspective, budgets, trade shows, conferences rank number 1 or 2 in terms of budget priority for companies targeting their buyers. But the trade show and live event space is going to be vastly different over the next 2 to 3 years, maybe even forever. Now, how do you think B2B marketers should prepare for this new paradigm shift and still be able to connect with buyers effectively?
Wow. If I heard somebody say new normal again, that would be, I would absolutely lose it, really. So to answer your question, things have definitely changed for the better, I think, because event organizers have been now pushed to think of themselves as delivering experiences as opposed to creating platforms. Now, these experiences are increasingly going to be hybrid. So the way we as marketers think about our investments going forward, we're going to demand that from event producers to say, how are we going to get maximum bang for buck, not just by having people on the floor, but having people participate virtually, because that's going to be the reality for the foreseeable future. And I think as creatures of habit, we're going to really set that expectation and the benchmark of experiences in a whole new way. We're going to define it in a whole new way. But as B2B marketers, again, I must tell you that the tendency to think that our budgets are best served by large events are going to be challenged now. Events are going to be even more one-to-few, one-on-one, especially for B2B. B2C is a whole different ballgame, and I can understand you need the mass appeal and the mass reach. But for B2B, you're going to be even more intentional about how your events are going to serve the purpose of the bottom of the funnel. It's not going to be events for the top of the funnel. So that whole change of the continuum and the reprioritizing of the channels, events being one of the channels as I speak, is going to be real. And I think business is going to take even more interest and more skin in the game in the events part of your continuum as well.
Well, VC, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Any final thoughts before we close off?
I must admit that it's a pleasure to see folks like yourself, challenging and creating these opportunities for CMOs to come together and exchange ideas. We don't speak too much or enough, rather, to each other as a community, but efforts like this, initiatives like this, really help us to get our group think going, and really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Well, VC, thank you very much for being with us today. And thanks to everyone else for watching too on SalesBox.tv. We look forward to having you with us again soon. Cheers.